This video is a demonstration of some of the ideas and methods that you'll use in order to create a nice map for your report of the stream network of the Allen Creek watershed. Allen Creek watershed is shown right here. You recognize the shape. I had the copy left over from the previous exercise, as should you, and to that I've added another layer of data, the flow lines data, which, using the same method as last week, I downloaded, unzipped, and loaded into ArcMap. And what you can see here is that the data set, the grab, so to speak, out of the National Hydrologic Data Set of the flow lines data gave me a bigger chunk than is actually contained in our watershed. So there's more lines there. And as you remember, everything that's outside of the watershed is unimportant. Everything that's inside is essential to study. So what I'm going to show you how to do first is how to clip the larger data set down to the size of the watershed. The tool for that is called Clip, and it's one of the main geoprocessing tools. There's hundreds more that can be accessed by the search or the toolbox itself, but it's a commonly used tool. There's a descriptive thing on the side here to help remind you. I'll show you the layers, the input features. The features that are going to be clipped are the flow lines. It's a bigger data set than our watershed. The cookie cutter, or the clip feature, is the Allen Creek boundary. I have more files loaded in my workspace right now than you will. You'll just have those two. And it's going to be directed toward a default location, which I know where it is and understand. But what you should do is use the folder tool over here to actually find your flash drive, pick the folder you'd like this to go into, and give the output file a decent name as suggested in the lab exercise. So don't just let it take the default location. It may be on the computer and it might disappear if the computer turns off. You want to have control over where your output is going. So that being said, I'm going to let mine go here. I know where that is, and it's preserved on this computer. So I'm just going to go ahead and let it do the clip operation. We get the wonderful green check mark, and you can see that there's a new layer that's only limited to the extent of the watershed itself. So now if I turn off the original, you can see this. A handy thing to do is right click on the boundary and say zoom to layer, and it zooms in, and there's all of the flow lines, water flow paths that are inside of the watershed. I do have this tool called the Identify tool. It just happened to be turned on. You turn it on by clicking here, and if I click on one of these, I see that is called. It doesn't have a common name. It is an F type of 460, an F code of 46006, etc. So that's the I tool. What you'll be doing with it is described in the lab exercise. That is Westbrook. Very interesting. And I fear Westbrook might be just the creek that does not pass over the canal, which is right there, Erie Canal. So those are the lines. Right now, it's not showing me any distinction between streams and artificial channels. So I can go ahead and right-click on the clipped flow line map, which it got named that, flow lines clip number 3, third one I've tried today. I can do something. I can actually open the attribute table, and what this tells me is that there's 151 segments there. And out of those 151 segments, I'm going to make this larger. Out of those 151 segments, some of them have names, lengths are defined, etc. And actually that length may not be correct. The new ones that are created when you do the clip are and all the F codes, etc., I suggest or ask you to symbolize this particular layer for your final map based upon what each of these things actually is. So to do that, we can go to Properties. We can go to Symbology. I right-clicked on the layer name to get the layer properties. I can ask for Symbology. I can ask for Categories. And I can ask for a different symbol for every F code. And then I would say add all values. And apparently there are 5 different F codes. If I'd like, I could just go ahead and say OK. And each different F code gets a different pastel color. Don't really like them very much, so I will go ahead and first off, I don't need to do all other values. I just keep that out of my legend. And perhaps this one can be symbolized like this. This one can be symbolized like this. And we can apply a new symbol for each of these different flow path types. I'm doing these randomly without thought. I'll explain how you can do them. There we go. How you can do them meaningfully in a moment. And I say OK. And so every different F type that's available has a different symbology. So what symbology should you use? Well, the symbology you use, you'll probably decide what you want based upon what each of these codes translates to. So we can go back and we can actually control the labels as well. And we'll call this something. We'll call this something else. And so then we can control that in our legend in that way. So you can how would you know what each of these codes stands for or what each of these is? Whoops, didn't mean that. There is also in your lab folder. Oh, I'm slow to get there. Sorry. Watershed Science, Content, Lectures and Labs, Week 3, Lab, oh, it's buried pretty deep. There's actually a PDF which shows the translation for all of those codes. So 55800 is an artificial pathway, and so that should be symbolized with a symbol that is appropriate for that, or at least distinct from other things. So that's the symbology. The last step in your map making process is to create a layout. And there's a button down here that says Layout View. And what this does is it makes a map space that resembles a PowerPoint slide, and you have the ability to insert most anything you want into it, such as a title. I'm doing this very quickly, so it's not going to be too awesome. We'll also put in a legend. Oops, and you can slide around any of the elements. You can also insert a scale bar of many varieties and place it as you wish. So you're done by your name, the date, the reason you did this map. You might add a base mapping to this, a simple base map that doesn't detract. But that's where you're going to go for the product for this week's lab.